more Grenadian history. And this time, I'm featuring the Market Square, what was still known as the Market Square, St. George's, Grenada. Look at the picture there and notice how nice, how neat the fruits and the vegetables are laid out. And you see the people there selling and buying. The Market Square. But there's something about the Market Square that we should know. It became a famous place in Grenada for many reasons. Do you know that people were hanged in the Market Square during Julian Fedon's time? The British hanged what they termed rebels right there in the market. So hang them. So that was a scene that used to take place in the market. But there are other things I want to talk about, spend some time talking about. I vividly recall the St. George's Market Square and the vital part it played in our lives. You know, I'll tell you something before I even go on. My mother, Georgina de Riggs, she used to go to the market and buy the goods that they sold, the crops. And you know, she made so many good friends from the country part. In fact, she was the godmother of probably a couple of the people who had children. A good way to connect and build a friendship, yes. She made a lot of friends while she went to the market to shop. People from the various parts of the country, from Victoria and from Guave and Cloget and all these different parts of Grenada. I just wanted to put that in there. So the small pitched area, bounded by Hillsborough, Granby, Grenville, and the Halifax streets, still very important. Still very important. Some of us may not like the way it looks presently. The Market Square was not only the place where farmers brought their fruits and their vegetables, the flowers, and Grenadians love flowers, eh? They brought their spices there to be sold. But it was also the temporary home of parked buses. It was a central stage for political meetings and at times the venue for an entertaining film show. Well, we used to have a film show back in time, right in the market. And it was also the location of the district board. I'll tell you a little about the district board. You see that building right there? The district board. And the breakfast shed, which I'll tell you about also. And of course, the Market Square was the site of many a religious service. Now, somewhere in my mind, and I always say thank God for memory, the tooting of the vehicle horns still echo. And I still see the people squeezing their way through the closely packed Austin, Bedford, and Morris wooden buses. Well, back in time, the wooden buses ruled the streets of Grenada before the small Japanese vehicles, the one-more buses we used to call them, took over. But I always say, you see the wooden buses? Man, that's the best well-ventilated transportation we ever had in Grenada. When you ride in the wooden buses, man, you get the cool sea breeze hitting your face, and you smile. You smile. Now, I see women, still in my mind's eye, yeah? This is all memory, busily attending their goods. And you see them there in the picture, in the shed-like, but you're not seeing the shed-like structures. It's not in that picture. The other pictures that will show the shed-like structures that were erected there some time ago, still there. But I'll tell you this, when rain fell, boy, people were glad to seek shelter within those buildings. I still recapture scenes of the stalls and the tables that held the grung provision, the oranges, the soursop. Well, I had soursop in Grenada. I was there a couple of weeks ago, last month actually. This is 2025. I had soursop. But there were also sweet potatoes, mangoes. I got mangoes. Couldn't get mangoes. Friends gave me mangoes, blogos, and green fig. And just to hit a little on agriculture. There are images that stuck in my mind. For instance, just shifting to the Coronage area in Grenada, where what we call the traffickers used to assemble there, load the goods, the Blogo and the Tanya and the Dashin and all that stuff, right close to Hubbards on the Coronage, where the boats, the vessels used to park up there, and they used to put them on the boats, and they used to send that to Trinidad, all the different crops, the Dashin and the Tanya, etc. Lots of Tanya and Dashin, man, Blogo, all kind of bananas sent to Trinidad. Grenada didn't depend on St. Vincent to send breadfruit. We had a lot of breadfruit. We went to a place called Babi in St. John. You ever heard of Babi? You get the biggest breadfruit in Babi. Well, some people might take me up on that, but that's cool. That's cool. And I still picture a fella called Dummy James. Well, people these days using Dummy James' name, these politicians and so on, when they want to chastise other politicians, they say the politician getting on like Dummy James. But there were positive aspects to Dummy James' life. And yes, I'll touch on it. I can still picture Dummy James, who didn't have much education. He was challenged in various ways. But I still see him toting a heavy lard pan. You remember the lard pan? Well, we used to boil our ham in the lard pan. And I picture Dummy James gently setting the heavy lard pan in the back of the wooden bus. Then he received a small pittance, a small pay for his effort. And again, one thing I want to say about him, although he had his challenges, he made money in the old-fashioned way, not by liming, but by doing honest, hard work. So we have to say something nice about him because of that. Now I still spot the tourists from the various countries from Canada and North America, and so, well, Canada, North America, of course, and Europe. I still spot them picking up the nutmegs and the cloves and sniffing the fragrance. I'll tell you something, Grenada is not called a land of spice for nothing, there's no joke, When you smell the cinnamon, what do we call the spice? It smells differently. When I go to Grenada, I bring back the cinnamon and I give it to my friends who are not from Grenada, and they smell it. They say, hey, but this thing smells differently. I say, what do you expect? Grenada is a land of spice. And there were other smells back then in the market. The smell of blood pudding. And some people don't eat that. But the smell of blood pudding cooking and corn roasting in the market. And women selling ice cream. There was one particular woman who used to sell a nice roti in the market. I can't remember her name, but somebody will chime in and tell me. And yes, it was always a loud commotion. Sometimes the customer and a vendor used to clash over the price of a coconut, for instance. Now, the market square was especially busy on Saturday. Well, we used to call that market day. And the people came out in great numbers to pick up the best of the crops that were on display. The fresh fruits and the vegetables came from various parts of Grenada. And of course, people got up early and went to the market because they believed the old saying, the early bird got the best worm. My brother George, rest in peace, George Derriggs, who became a policeman. First he was a GVC, and then he became a police officer. PC Constable, Police Constable 104, George Derriggs. But once he made a Ball's wheel cart, the bearings of the get from the cars. Balls make a cart, and the Ball's wheel cart, it was called. I used to carry the goods my mother bought in the market, pack it on the cart, transport it to where we lived. Now, when we moved from Grenville Street area, which is close proximity to the market square, an area, yes, further away from the market, she began taking the more buses to transport the stuff. And I have to say something nice about the bus drivers. Some of them were very, very kind, so kind, that they used to veer off their regular route. Well, hey, boy, does confuse us with roads, route and route. The English tell us one thing, the Americans tell us something else. But they used to veer off the regular route and dropped my mother as close to her door as possible. They helped her. Boy, when she placed the appetizing bananas and the golden apples on the table, I used to smile. Yes, I used to smile. And whenever she used to tell me, hey, boy, I have an item for you. You know what an item was? An apple. An apple. And those apples that we used to get back in Grenada there, you could get the nice smell of the apples. Remind me of a poem that I did actually read in Scott Shaper School, St. John's Christian Secondary School. Can't remember the name of the poet, but it was after apple picking. Apple picking. Yes, he had an item for me. Now, the wooden buses stood in a neat formation. Again, I have to emphasize the word neat. Order. Side by side in the designated section of the market square. And policemen were there to enforce the rule. You had the buses from St. David's in one area, the one from St. Paul's, those going to Monjaloo even, Reliance, I think used to go there. And the buses had a lot of names, different names, as Sweet Roses, Labor Reward, Monkey Toe. Imagine a man call a bus Monkey Toe. I've written about the wooden buses in other pieces that I've done and featured in the 4 books that I've written. So the people used to climb onto the buses and waited until the drivers felt they had enough people to hit the road. Now, when the small Japanese-type buses or more buses came, 1, 2, 3, and those buses used to be filled and they're gone. So while the people who used to drive, the drivers of the wooden buses, which took a longer time, they realized, boy, you know what, we better get into these small buses business, because it takes so long to fill up these big buses. So what I sometimes call the Japanese sardine cans, we had to squeeze up and squeeze in, squinge up, I like the words, it's a squinge up, took over. And these days you'll only find 1 or 2 wooden buses. Some of the tourists like to be transported. Some people use them to transport tourists, but you don't see them as a means of transportation these days. Now, the rear part of the buses were often loaded with bags of flour, sugar, and rice. People bought in bulk and placed them at the back of the buses so to transport those people who own shops and so on. And the drivers were kind to let them put their bags of flour and sugar and so on at the back of the bus. Now, the wooden buses was an important method of public transportation. Again, as I mentioned before, until its reign on the streets was put an end around the 1970s, when a number of the small Japanese buses made their appearance. So those small buses took over the streets, and you see them today, and they took over the market square. And on the outskirts of the market were the taxis, line the outskirts. Now, the market square was a place where people gathered to hear politicians. The politicians loved to speak in the market. And it's no wonder that later on a certain politician chose to address the crowd in the market. Fast forward. And they spoke back then of their plans for the country, and the platform was used as a market square, an area where they castigated each other. And the politicians, they loved that boy. They castigated. They still do. But now some of the castigation is taking place on social media, cursing each other. I don't get involved in that. To me, it don't make no sense. Makes no sense. Because some of them fighting for nothing. Soon they're gone, and everybody go forget them. Yes, back then they castigated each other over the microphone. But I remember a certain politician saying, and you can figure out who that was: "Everywhere I go, Mr. Blaze is following me." You know, when the election result come out, Mr. Blaze is going to be following me also, meaning that he will cut Blaze still, so to speak. The people laugh. And I also recall another politician asking, "Where the hell all the nutmeg money gone? Where the money gone? Where the nutmeg money gone?" Boy, them kind of thing is that today, A Calypsonian even composed a song using the words, "Where the nutmeg money gone?" Now I still hear, thank God again from memory, I still hear the loudspeakers blaring the famous words, Tonight in the market square, come and hear the Honorable Eric Matthew Gary, or come and hear Mr. Hubert Blaze, the Honorable Hubert Blaze." So another occasion was Hubert Blaze. Now the cars with the microphones mounted on top traveled around the city, and someone in the car implored the people to attend the political meetings. Now when people flocked to the meetings, they stood up and listened and cheered, or sometimes they used to boo. They like to boo, boy. And sometimes they rotten egg, or a bunch of rotten eggs became missiles that interrupted the political meeting. There's a certain politician who used a steel band once, a steel band, use a steel band to march to a political meeting. Boy, you think we easy? I think of the occasion. My mother took my brothers, and she took me also. I took us to a film show in the market square. Well, probably people listen to me might be saying, "Boy, this man old, boy." Well, you could say old, but old than a day. The film show was a popular event back then. It was in the market square that I first saw Charlie Chaplin on the screen. And I remember how much I laughed at his funny antics. On the little screen, they used to set up near the district board. You see the district board there, that building there? They used to set up the screen right there. And we had to stand and look, and we were contented to do so. We were happy to do so. We stood there and we laughed our hearts out. Now, the market square was an important place where many of the very important social needs of the people were addressed. The district board, a sort of a town hall, a borough council, as we'll have in America here, the borough council, looking at the needs of the various parts of Grenada, the cities, if you want to say that, tending to local matters of the needy. And right below the district board was what was called the breakfast shed. Now, the breakfast shed provided breakfast for school children whose parents were not able to adequately provide for them. Why we say poor people children. And the students used to line up on mornings and waited until the names of the school were called. I must say, curiosity got the better of me once, and I went, after eating home, I went into the breakfast shed. I got bakes and cocoa tea back then. So yes, there were students who ate at home, but they still headed for the breakfast shed. It was a nice gesture. That was very nice, feeding poor people children before they go to school. Now, in those days, back then, the 60s, probably the early 70s, and before the 60s, of course, the big church meetings, or what was called revivals, were held. The bigger ones were held in Queen's Park, but the Market Square was also the scene of many an evangelical service, Pentecostal and so on. Used to have the services in the Market Square. And the people stood on the paved ground and listened as preachers issued the call to repentance. I think we need that today, the call to repentance. Too much evil out there. Now, Christmas Eve, boy, the Market Square was busier than any other time. The atmosphere, Christmas. Many of the tables were packed with toys. Again, I want to emphasize how neat things were. Toys to catch the attention of children. There were toy guns. I say always, we used to play with toy guns, but I can't think of any of my friends who grew up to kill anybody with a gun. They were a different mindset back then. So there were toy guns and balloons and dolls, starlights and cars, many other toys. I must pick up my great-grand. I got her the rigs. And I always say, she was such a nice woman. But when she went to the United States, she came back with a black doll. It was the first time I saw a black doll. That says something about her, eh? Now, it was customary for parents to give the children a couple of dollars to go shopping on Christmas Eve. Try that these days. Try giving a child, boy, you had to come up with some things these days, computers and cell phones and all these different things. Well, times have changed, change is constant, and a lot of changes occur. Not all change is good, but change will occur, and changes do occur. So we used to go shopping on Christmas Eve, and we used to buy something called a starlight. And we should light the starlight. Grandma didn't like the starlight. Anybody who lit a starlight in the house, you could hear a voice. Oh, I'm telling you, all want to burn down the house. A long time I haven't seen a starlight, never still have them. So they brought the toys. We bought our toys, and then we headed to the area around the Market Square to see what other things the people had on their trays to sell. And when night fell, we all used to head to the cinema to catch the special show, even the midnight show. Rather than the movies, Empire and Regal. Well, Regal, Reno, same thing. Name change over time. We went to the midnight show. Some movies like The Hell and Back, Django, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and the various shows. I saw those shows, and we call her George. Now all those shows I used to fight in get in line to see back then. Boy, I knew I was going to see that in the comfort of my home. I would have just wait until the time when I was going to see it. But yes, we used to have to jam up, and sometimes you have those who sold tickets telling you, the show sold out. The show sold out. And we used to get vexed, Show sold out. The same show you see on television, AMC, American Movie Cinema, and so on. You see that for free now. But not for free, because you have to pay the cable company. But whenever I return to Grenada, and I often do so, I was there twice this year, 2025, I was there twice, and I met some good friends, thank God, boy, people that I grew up with. I'm always so happy to meet them and to see them and to chat with them. No greater joy do I have when I go to Grenada than when I sit on a big stone with Tito's the Visigoth, Junior the Visigoth, and we'll talk, rekindling memories of the past, the times when he used to act a whole western by himself on that terracita mango tree on Copper Hill. Gives me great joy when I return to Grenada and meet friends and make new friends. Every time I go there, I make new friends. Now, as regards the Market Square, well, opinions will vary on its present state. Well, of course, the buses are no longer parked there. There's a new area for buses on Mabel Street. The coconuts, the fruits, and the ground provisions, they are still sold in the market, yes. Only it is not as nice and neat as it used to be. Not to bust my head for saying that, but I like to speak what I see about what I see. The breakfast shed and the district board, well, that's gone. That's gone. And the noise and the bargaining still remind me of my childhood experience. I ain't going away. People will always argue and quarrel over the price of a coconut or breadfruit. I ain't going anywhere. That's us. And we is we. I ain't changing. So like a tourist, what do I do? Pick up the cinnamon, pick up the nutmeg, and sometimes I smell it too, like a tourist. Purchase them, stuff them in my bags, and carry them to my friends in New York City. And I am glad when I do so. Give them the taste and the smell of Grenada. The Market Square. At the Market Square tonight, come on here. The Honorable so-and-so bamboos the people. We good at bamboozing too, Boy, a lot of us just take basket. That one have a one, Taking basket. Anthony Wendell, the Riggs.